What if the death of Pope Francis were the sign the Bible prophesied, an event that could mark the beginning of the end? In this video, you'll uncover what the scriptures reveal about the papacy, intriguing prophecies, and the signs of the last days. Are we living through the fulfillment of these predictions? Let's explore together biblical prophecies, the mysterious list of St. Malachi, and what all of this means for you. Get ready for a journey that might change your view of the future. Let's dive in now. Have you ever thought about the weight the Pope carries? Not just as the leader of millions of Catholics, but as a figure that, for some, is intertwined with ancient prophecies. The papacy, this millennial institution, is more than a religious office. For many, it appears in the pages of the Bible, hidden in symbols and visions. Let's dive into this intriguing connection and find out, could Pope Francis, or the papacy itself, play a role in the final events described in Scripture? First, we need to understand what the Bible says. In the book of Daniel, chapter 7, we find the vision of 4 beasts, which many scholars interpret as world empires. The last beast, with its horns, is where things get interesting. Verse 8 speaks of a little horn that rises, uprooting other horns and speaking arrogant things. Some theologians, especially historical Protestants, see this horn as a representation of the papacy. Why? Because in history, the papacy grew in power after the fall of the Roman Empire, influencing kings and nations. It wasn't just a spiritual leader, but a political force that shaped Europe for centuries. Now let's turn to Revelation chapter 13. Here, John describes a beast emerging from the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns, receiving power from the dragon. Many interpret this beast as a global power system, and the papacy for some fits into this picture. Verse 3 says one of the beast's heads appeared mortally wounded but was healed, which some associate with the recovery of papal power after periods of crisis, like in the 20th century. But hold on, we're not saying the Pope is the villain of the story. The question is, does the Bible use these images to point to an institution, not a person? Let's take a step back and look at history. In the 12th century, a monk named St. Malachi allegedly received a vision with a list of 112 popes, each described by an enigmatic motto. The last one, called Peter the Roman, would rule during a time of great tribulation, leading to the destruction of Rome. Curiously, some believe Pope Francis, with his Latin roots and a name that recalls St. Peter, could be this final pope. But is this prophecy reliable, or is it just a legend that gained a life of its own? Think about it. The papacy has always been at the center of theological debates. For Catholics, the Pope is the successor of Peter, the rock of the Church, as stated in Matthew 16:18. But for other Christians, it represents something more complex, perhaps even a symbol of power the Bible warns about for the last days. So, what do you think? Is the Pope just a religious leader, or is there something bigger at play in the prophecies? This connection between the papacy and the Bible leads us to an even deeper question. What if Pope Francis is the last one? Could his death, or the end of his papacy, trigger prophetic events? To answer that, we need to look at another piece of the puzzle, the mysterious prophecy of St. Malachi. Let's explore that next. Now that we've seen how the papacy might be linked to biblical prophecies, it's time to dive into a story that has intrigued scholars and the curious for centuries, the prophecy of St. Malachi. Does this mysterious list of 112 popes really predict the end of times? And where does Pope Francis fit in? Let's find out. The prophecy of St. Malachi is said to have originated in the 12th century, attributed to an Irish monk named Malachi, who, according to tradition, had a divine vision. In it, he listed 112 popes, each with a short, enigmatic motto, starting with Pope Celestine II in 1143 up to the last one, called Peter the Roman. The text states that this final pope will rule during a great tribulation, when the city of the seven hills, Rome, will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. Sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? But the story of this prophecy is as fascinating as it is controversial. Let's get to the facts. The prophecy was only published in 1595, over 400 years after Malachi's death, which raises suspicions. Some historians believe it was forged to influence the papal election of that time. Even so, the mottos for the popes often seem eerily accurate. For example, Pope John Paul II, the 110th on the list, is described as De Labore Solis, from the labor of the sun. Curiously, he was born during a solar eclipse and was known for his tireless energy, like the sun. Coincidence? Perhaps. Now we come to Pope Francis, who would be the 112th Pope, the Peter the Roman. His motto in the prophecy is exactly that, and many make connections. Francis chose his name in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, an Italian, and his Argentine roots tie him to Latin culture, which recalls Rome. Plus, he's the first Jesuit to become Pope, a religious order with a strong presence in Rome. But is he really the last Pope? And what would that mean? Let's reflect for a moment. The prophecy of St. Malachi isn't officially accepted by the Catholic Church, and many theologians see it as a curiosity, not an absolute truth. Still, it resonates with biblical passages, like Revelation 17, which speaks of the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth and will be destroyed. Rome, the city of the seven hills, appears as a recurring symbol. So, is the prophecy of Malachi an echo of these biblical visions, or just a story that fuels our imagination? Think about it. If Francis is the last pope, what comes next? Are we facing a crucial moment in history? Do you think this prophecy is being fulfilled, or is it just a legend that has survived through time? While you ponder that, let's take a step further. The prophecy of St. Malachi is just one piece of the puzzle. To understand the full picture, we need to look at the signs of the last days described in the Bible. That's what's coming up next. We've reached the heart of our topic, the signs of the end times described in the Bible. If the papacy and prophecies like St. Malachi's point to something bigger, what does the Bible say about what's to come? Are we truly living in the last days? Let's explore the scriptures and connect these signs to the world today with stories and reflections that will make you think. In Matthew 24, Jesus gives a clear list of signs that will mark the end. He speaks of wars, rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes, and persecutions. In verse 7 he says, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, plagues, and earthquakes in various places." Sound familiar? Just look at the news. Global conflicts, increasingly frequent natural disasters, hunger crises in various regions. In 2023, the UN reported that over 700 million people faced food insecurity. Devastating earthquakes, like the one in Turkey in 2023 that killed over 50,000 people, also echo these words. Coincidence or prophetic fulfillment? But it doesn't stop there. Jesus also warns of false prophets and the increase of lawlessness in Matthew 24:11-12. Today, we see a polarized world with clashing ideologies and charismatic leaders who attract crowds, not always for good. The Bible speaks of a spiritual cooling where the love of many will grow cold. Have you felt this around you? A void, a search for meaning that seems harder to find. Now let's go to Revelation, the book that details the climax of the last days. In Revelation 13, alongside the beast from the sea, we find the beast from the earth, which deceives the world with false miracles and imposes a mark to buy or sell. Many speculate about what this mark might be, a chip, an economic system. While no one knows for sure, the advancement of technology like digital wallets and global surveillance makes this idea seem less like science fiction. In 2024, the World Economic Forum discussed digital identity systems that could globally unify personal data. Are we heading toward that? Another key piece is the Antichrist, described in 2 Thessalonians 2 as the man of lawlessness, who opposes God and exalts himself above all. He emerges before Christ's return, deceiving many. The Bible doesn't say the Antichrist is the Pope, but some connect the papacy to this power system due to its global influence. Think about it. Could a figure or institution that unites politics, religion, and economics play this role? It's a question worth reflecting on. Let's bring this to reality with a story. In 2019, a Brazilian pastor shared a vivid dream. He saw a city in flames, world leaders in panic, and a sky red as blood. He believed it was a warning of the last days. Dreams aren't proof, but stories like this emerge worldwide, echoing Joel 2:28, which says that in the last days God will pour out his Spirit, and the young will see visions, and the old will dream dreams. Have you heard something like this? Or noticed signs in the world that made you stop and think? The signs are out there: disasters, crises, climate changes, global tensions. But the Bible also speaks of hope. In Matthew 24:14, Jesus says the gospel will be preached to the whole world before the end. Today, with the internet, the Christian message reaches places never before accessed. Isn't that incredible? We're living in a unique moment in history. So which of these signs have you noticed in the world today? Do you think we're closer to the end than we realize? These questions lead us to the final point of our journey. What does all this mean for us? Get ready, because the conclusion will tie all these pieces together and leave you with plenty to think about. We've reached the end of our journey, and now it's time to piece it all together. We explored the role of the papacy in biblical prophecies, dove into the mysterious prophecy of St. Malachi, and analyzed the signs of the end described in the Bible. But what does all this mean for you? Could the death of Pope Francis or the end of his papacy be a prophetic milestone? Or are the signs around us, wars, disasters, global changes, an invitation to reflect on the future? The Bible, in Revelation 22:12, reminds us, "Behold, I am coming soon, and my reward is with me to repay each one according to his work." This is a promise of hope, but also a call to action. We don't know the day or the hour, as Jesus said in Matthew 24:36, but we can live prepared. Whether you're a devout Christian or just someone curious, these topics challenge us to look beyond the everyday and ask, am I ready for what's coming? Think about it. The signs are all around us, and the prophecies, whether from Malachi or the Bible, point to a decisive moment. Maybe Pope Francis isn't the last pope, but his leadership in such turbulent times makes us question. And you, what do you think? Are we at the beginning of the end or just in another chapter of history? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I want to know. Do you believe we're in the last days? If this video made you think, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next ones. Share it with someone who also loves exploring these deep topics. Let's keep this conversation going together. The future is in God's hands, but the signs are before us. See you next time.